So next, we are going to hear from Chris, who's going to talk to us about, how do you say the organization? CFITO or just CFITO?
CFITO, yeah.
Okay, so not a cool word.
No,
should
it's
start calling it CFITO.
politics being what it is. There's my colleague Katie Cook, who's at the National Entrepreneur Center as well. Yeah, CFITO was because when we were founded, the mayors didn't get along particularly well, and so we were not going to be called the Orlando International Trade Office. We had to be called the Central Florida International Trade Office, and so I've got a real mouthful of a name that doesn't lend itself to a good acronym. And of course, in international trade, you get all sorts of acronyms.
Just call yourselves the TO.
Yeah, I would love to just be OTO, but in any event, what's more important is what it is that we can do for you. One of the top things I want people to take away from this is that you're not too small to export. If you look at the United States as your market, then you can look at the whole world as your market. This is something that people are already doing in Orlando. 1 in 5 Florida jobs depend on international trade. It's importing and exporting. So that's over 260,000 jobs in Central Florida alone. Also, we export goods from Central Florida. And when I talk about Central Florida, I'm talking about the Orlando, Sanford, Kissimmee metropolitan statistical area. The exports, we just got this data in very recently for 2021 was $5 billion. So this is not a small market that we're talking about. There's a lot of businesses already exporting. There are more than 58,000 exporting companies. And again, emphasizing that you don't have to be big. 42% of businesses that are exporting from the United States are under 19 employees. So this is not just big multinationals that are exporting. So everybody here, I think, is looking to grow their business. As I say, if you look at the United States as your market, then you can look at the world as your market. They've got buyers. 95% of world consumers live outside the United States. They have money. 3/4 of global wealth is outside the United States. So this is really too large of a market to ignore. Everybody, I think, is trying to manage risk. So you don't want to be dependent on a single market. You don't want to have one buyer. I mean, it's nice if you have one person who's going to buy as much as you can from them, but then their problems become your problems. So you want to be looking at how can you be ready for the economic downturn. And part of that's going to be having as many buyers as possible so that you can manage to spread your risk around the world and not only be dependent on the US market. It can help you smooth out business cycles. If you have a product or a service that is really only for going to be popular in part of the year, like if you sell bathing suits, well, when it's summer in Florida, it's going to be winter in the Southern Hemisphere and vice versa. So you can start selling 12 months of the year if you really have a 6-month product that's going to really be able to sell in more markets. You also are going to learn a lot of lessons that will help you become more competitive. You're going to learn different ways to sell abroad. That's one of the #1 things that we talk about, is that selling outside the United States is not the same as selling in the United States. You have to take a look at their business culture, at their, what's the buyer persona going to be like that you're trying to aim at in other countries. So the lessons that you learn by trying to sell differently are also going to help you sell differently here in the United States and potentially reach more markets. In addition to when you're abroad, you may find a new product that you're going to be able to sell here. And coming to getting new products, one of the benefits of being international is you'll find products that may not be available in the United States. They may be available at a more competitive price. It could be that component that's going to make you competitive internationally or within the United States is going to have to be imported. It may be that you just can't manufacture everything here in the United States and still be able to find a market for your product. But it also is going to help you better manage risk in your supply chain. You don't want to be dependent on just one manufacturer or one market. And by looking internationally, that's one of the ways you can find more suppliers to help you out when you start having issues with your main supplier. Also, looking to manufacture abroad is going to make you more competitive, as I was saying, with an imported component, as well as helping meet customers' needs. We have a very diverse marketplace here in Central Florida, a lot of different cultures, particularly if you've come from somewhere else. There may be products that you know of from back home that other people are looking for here in Central Florida, and you're going to be able to take that product and deliver it to the market here. Of course, you want to be ready to trade. This is not something you can just start off right away without any preparation. You want to take a look, what is the product or service you want to sell or buy internationally. Unfortunately, I get a lot of people coming to me who say, I can sell anything anywhere. Well, that's a nice goal to have, but it's not realistic. You have to get focused on what it is that you want to sell. You want to identify your goals for importing or exporting so that you have something to aim for. You need to ensure, if you don't own the company, that your company management has bought in on this. I mean, if you're the sales team at your company, there's an investment that needs to be made in exporting, and you want to make sure that there's that commitment, and you're not going to waste your time going to try to make those international sales. You need to look at things like the financing, but there's a lot of products that are available to help you, other service providers. You need to have an open mind, as I was saying earlier. It's not the same to sell internationally as it is within the United States. So you have to be open to doing things differently. You can't just decide that this is the way I've been successful in the United States. I can just replicate it anywhere else in the world. So you really need to adapt to those other cultures. Finally, you don't want to be in a rush. This is not something that's going to happen overnight. If you've all started your own businesses, you know that you don't have overnight success. It's the same thing internationally. It takes time to build up a client base around the world and to find people who are going to be interested in your product. So in terms of who, I take all those things. In terms of who we are and what we're going to be able to do, help you, I am at the National Entrepreneur Center, just across the road at Fashion Square Mall. We were established in a partnership between JP Morgan Chase and Orange County. Later on, we got funding from Seminole and the city of Orlando, and we really serve the entire business community. And we do this by one-on-one counseling with businesses to help them understand what's involved in importing and exporting, and if it's something that's going to benefit their business. We do education and outreach, making presentations like this, as well as putting on webinars and workshops about various markets and trade topics. We help connect businesses to opportunities internationally. If a foreign business delegation is coming to Central Florida and they need help facilitating their visits, they'll get referred to us to help with that. And then finally, we help connect businesses to the other resources that are available. CFITO is one, but there's others. We at the Entrepreneur Center, we've got the Small Business Development Center there that has an international trade specialist, and their signature product is preparing export marketing plans. Enterprise Florida has a variety of grants and trade missions that they do. And then at the federal level, there is the U.S. Commercial Service, where if you think of the commerce officers around the world and our embassies outside the United States, then they're part of that network, and the U.S. Export Assistance Center can help you connect to that net. So in terms of if you're interested in learning more, obviously we'll have a conversation today, but reach out to me. My information is available here, and hopefully you will start looking at the opportunities in the global marketplace, because you'll realize that this is really too big of a market to ignore. I hope that's within 6 minutes. Thanks for your time.
Good morning. Thank you for your presentation. On the next slide, you mentioned exporting services. Can you give me examples of services that can be exported? Is it all virtual or?
Yes, there's some that are in many ways indirect. Like if you have a restaurant and you sell a meal to a tourist, that's considered a service export. So sometimes you'll have a business that's targeting that. So if you're in the tourism business and you're trying to bring in visitors from Brazil, or get visitors to use your service, whether it be a restaurant, a hotel, a vacation rental, that's an export of a service. Then there's the more direct part. So if you're, let's say, an architect and you want to provide a service to a business that's looking to build in Dubai, as long as there's no restrictions on licensing, like you may have to be licensed as an architect in that market, but if you go in and provide that service, or you're an engineering company and you do engineering work, that would be an export of a service. Similarly, if you are an accounting company and you do business for someone who's got an investment here in the US, but they're located in Canada, that's a service export. So there's a lot of potential exports. They're harder to track than products, because products, they move, they have to have paperwork to accompany them. So that's easy to track. The other exports of services is a lot harder, because you may be doing it without even realizing you're exporting, because somebody buys your service and you're not really paying attention to where they might be from. Again, using the example of a restaurant, you don't know where they're from, but a lot of times you'll be aware of those exports. And from when it comes to products as well, you may be exporting and not really be thinking about it, because there's obviously where you have an intent to export and you start looking to make those foreign sales. But if you sell electronically and you have an online presence, you may be shipping outside the country and exporting, but not really realize it.
Thank you.
So I think this is John.
So many questions. If I wanted to start a McDonald's, I understand I could go overseas, buy some real estate, set up a brick and mortar, and start selling McDonald's burgers, right?
As long as you have the franchise to do that.
Correct, but they've done it, so it's complicated.
Yeah.
In my situation where I have a product, you have so many questions as to, will they buy my product? Who's going to distribute my product? Who's going to set me up and actually help me, find the market for this product? Do you guys have those things in place? That you have people in place that will actually help you take a product that's here in Florida and find a market for it and find a place that can be distributed? Or am I supposed to find these people online and then just ship them overseas and call it exporting?
No, that's a great question. I mean, there's different services that can help you with that. I mean, there's CFITO. What we primarily would do is make sure you're asking the right questions and link you with the resources that can help you. So it might be that you want to go and attend a trade show to learn more about that market, because at a trade show, let's say you're a candy manufacturer and you want to sell your candy in Africa. Well, there's maybe a trade show for confectionery in Africa, and you're going to be able to go there, do the networking yourself, meet potential distributors. If you want to rely on someone, then there are consultants who do that, but you can start off working with the U.S. Commercial Service, because they'll have people, again, let's use that same example, at an embassy in Dakar, and that's the market you want to go into in Senegal. So they can, they'll have someone there who can help connect you with distributors, with people who are going to want to buy the product. They have services like their Gold Key service, where you say, okay, I want to be connected with buyers for my product. Now they have partial cost recovery for that, and that depends on the size of your business. But it's not terribly expensive. I think it's about $1,200 for something like that. And it's also useful in the sense that if they can't find any buyers for you, then you probably don't want to go into that market. There's services as well, like I mentioned the export marketing plans that the Florida SBDC will do. That is funded if you're a Florida business manufacturing the product in Florida. You don't have to be Florida owned. Like if you've got investors, say from Germany, that own 3/4 of your company, but you make the product in Florida, that's a Florida product. They'll help you with that. That marketing plan will help you decide, okay, well, which markets do you want to go into? How are you going to go in, or what are some of the possibilities? Because you have to decide yourself as well what you want to invest in. You want to have an online presence and take the sales yourself. then that's going to be a different situation than if you basically just want to find a sales agent or a distributor for your product. Some of those are decisions that you'd want to look at, but that's where it's, I think, working with some of those resources at the federal level, as well as just going to a trade show is going to be a particularly great opportunity. We have trade missions as well that go around the world every year. That's again another great way to start making those connections.
Sounds to me like this is a 2-year venture. Like you're not gonna, this isn't gonna happen quickly. This is gonna be.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it depends on what your objectives are. If it's basically just to figure out how to make international sales off your existing website, that's going to be different than if you actually want to go and start developing a market for your product in that country. So it's very individual. But it's like when you start a business, sometimes things are going to be easier than others, depending on what your objectives are. And again, that goes back to needing to have objectives.
2 questions, kind of. Is there any particular type of company or industry that's better for export? And does the age of the company, like it's a startup, or do they have to be established? How does that?
I'll take the second question first. It really, in terms of being a startup, it depends on what resources you want to take advantage of. Generally, say the federal and state level programs, like the grants that they have, the connections that they'll make, they want to work with an established company. And generally it's, 2 years in operation with 100K gross sales per year is generally what they would be looking at. Now, if you're somebody who's worked in the business for the past 20 years and you decide to branch out on your own and provide a service or supply product, they're going to take a look at that differently than if you're a startup where you're not really sure, you don't have a track record to show that you can actually deliver. In terms of the former, it really depends. That's why I say if you look at the United States as your market, you can look at the world as your market. If your business is a hair salon that is really only marketing to Central Florida customers, well, you're probably, unless you have plans to franchise internationally because it's a great idea, then you're probably not going to be interested in exporting. But otherwise, if you've got a product that sells well here, sells well around the country, then it's probably going to sell well around the United States. Made in USA is a great brand to sell on. It was a reliable provider of good products, good quality products, innovative products. So I wouldn't say that there's any particular industry that's going to be better than another in actually. Of course, it will depend on the individual market. Like obviously, if you make pharmaceuticals and you're selling in Europe, unless your product's really innovative, that's a well-served market by domestic manufacturers. But then the same product, if you're looking to sell it in say Asia, where in a market where they don't have anyone who's making domestically, then that might be a great market for you. So it's all really depends on the product and the market you're looking to go into. And that's where working with some of the service providers to help you identify what are going to be good markets for you is going to be a great way to get started, because it's very easy to want to supply anywhere and say you can supply anywhere, but you have to get focused on and take steps to grow internationally, not try and do everything all at once.
A question may not be an answer for. I've had an anchor store on eBay for about 14 years now. And we used to do a lot of overseas business. And what happened with the overseas kids, keep in mind, these are all small orders. They're getting from $20 to maybe a couple $100. It's not like you're shipping 1,000 parts that the people on the other end are going to make sure. But what would happen is it would be caught up in customs at the local countries, and it just sit there for a while. And the buyer would get anxious, where's my money? We'd have to refund the money. And eventually customs would go ahead and deliver it, and never once did they ever pay us for the fact that we'd already refunded for the material they got. So eBay realized they were losing a lot of money because all of us stopped selling internationally. And they went and set up a site in Kentucky where if they get an international order, they do all the processing, they do all the details as far as taxes and so on and duties and that, and they send that to the client, who then has to make a decision, am I going to buy this or not? Most of the time they say no, because they're trying to cheat whatever they can on the duties, so on and so forth. So it's cost a lot of business and a lot of people, eBay included. Is there any solution for that? We don't know what it might be.
I mean, it's really hard to say because the rules are gonna be different for, these would be called de minimis shipments, so like basically minimal value.
Yeah.
So using the United States as an example, you can import $800 in what you might consider a personal shipment without incurring any duties, no matter what the product is. Different countries are gonna have different rules. It might be $25, and so you're gonna have to deal with paying duties. Depending on what company you use as well, that's going to be the key relationship is, who's doing the shipping for you. I used to live in Canada, and I would not want to have anything shipped to me with UPS, because if it came from the United States with UPS, there was always so many charges at the border that if I say used FedEx, they weren't nickel and diming me on that. And so that's where it's important who you're using. So it's hard to give a general answer to that, because it just depends so much on who's doing the shipping for you and what the country is that you're exporting to. Because if it's Canada, it's generally, you're probably not going to get too many problems.
No,
But if
we
you're
have
going to-
tremendous problems with Canada also.
Oh, okay.
Our only real choices are UPS, FedEx, and the post office itself.
Or DHL. yeah.
You can go to somebody like that, but then the amount of the shipment versus what's costing you to ship it gets kind of crazy. So you're
Yeah.
kind of stuck with those three.
Well, and then there's that's the part of the challenge is how many sales you're going to be making in a country. Because if you're making enough to have a distributor there, you may be able to find someone small who'll do it. Like, for example, there's a guy I know, Diego Sampaio. His business, Global Fi, in part is helping to do financing for businesses who are looking to get established in Florida, but part of it is doing distribution. So he has a distribution center and does basically fulfillment for these companies. So he doesn't have huge amounts of stuff in stock. But if a market, like let's say you're planning on selling a lot into Canada, there's probably going to be the equivalent of a Diego Sampaio there, who can be your small scale distributor for those products. But if you're going to have to do everything as individual shipments from here, then you have to really look at, are people going to be willing to pay for the cost of shipping on something like that? And, maybe you're not competitive because of the
Some
shipping.
interesting ideas. I didn't even think of the fact of a distributor based in the country itself. That might work.
Yeah, because they can do the fulfillment for you. It's
I did that in Canada. I shipped a pallet of stuff up to Canada. They did it just like a fulfillment center here in the US. That way I didn't have to pay any of the duties or anything like that on the individual shipments. I just get it on the pallet. And so it works out really slick. You can do that from country to country.
Good idea.
I was doing that in the Philippines and Australia as well. So
How big of an amount would you have to send in order to make that worthwhile?
it all depends on the distributor. It all depends on your fulfillment house, your product and everything. I mean, it's
Yeah.
really not that expensive to put money into the warehouse. I mean, it's like $20 a month, for a pallet. That was 9 years ago. So it's probably more now, but
They'll have generally negotiated favorable rates with some of the shipping companies. So
Yeah.
that would be better than you're probably paying if you're doing it on a one-off. But you have to really decide on what kind of commitment do you want to make to that market in terms of distribution. And as you've said, it depends on the type of product. I mean, if you've got a product that's in the low value that you're talking about, well, that's going to be different than if you're selling, a $1,000 TV at a time.
it's also better because you get charged customs on the wholesale rate, not on each retail, price tag. And so you're getting charged customs on the wholesale. And I looked at Toronto because 80% of the Canadian population is on the eastern side. So that's where I did mine for Canada.
Do you have any specific companies that are local, manufacture in Florida, who have grown a successful exportation business and continue to do that today?
Yeah, a great example. The name is the Arnon's Karen. They do a business that they actually got an award, an E-award from the president, which is an export award for how much they grew. I think 40% of their sales now are international. They sell adhesives internationally, and so yeah, there's a lot of businesses that will that will actually be quite successful.
But that's a service, not a product.
Oh, no, it's a product. It's adhesive. It's like glue. I mean, it's not glue, but it's basically like glue. So it's a product that sells internationally. Questions? Well, thank you very much.
Well, I have
I'm
a final
always
question,
available.
and that is, what can we as a community do for you?
Let people know about the opportunities in the international marketplace. That's half of it, and then the other half is letting them know that there's actually people there who can help them, because I think, as I was saying at the beginning, a lot of people think they're either too small to export or it's going to be too hard, and you're not too small. And yeah, it's hard, but there's a lot of resources available out there to help you, and that's what CFITO can put you in contact with.
I do have one more question.
Oh, sure.
Sorry. So the Central Florida International Trade Office, your mission is to bring in more. Is your mission to bring in products and services, or is your mission to export? What do you guys really want to do? Why are you
We do both. We don't do foreign direct investment. That's really the Orlando Economic Partnership that looks at bringing investment into the region. We're looking at doing business in both directions, because on the one hand, obviously, I mean, the benefits of increasing sales internationally, so exporting are obvious, but importing is important as well. I mean, you've got to take a look at the businesses, let's say down on iDrive, that are selling souvenirs that are all imported. One of the reasons we were established is to be able to help businesses like that, because at the state and federal level, they can only help businesses that are exporting, but we can help businesses that are importing understand what's involved in that, and help them add value here and create jobs here selling those products.
And that also includes services and trying to bring people to the US so that they can take advantage of the services and products.
When you say bring people to the US, then it really depends. Well, that's a service export, even though you're bringing people into the United States.
Right.
That, you know, it depends exactly what they're looking for, but certainly that's something that you know, we can talk to a business about, and that there are programs that are being offered by, say, the federal government. Like, they're always looking to help businesses increase tourism in a region. So there's services available for that. If you're talking about bringing people in to work here, that's where you start getting into the immigration laws. And you know, I know enough to be dangerous, but that's
Yeah.
a
You mentioned about like serving a meal to someone who's from Brazil, perhaps. You know what I mean? Like those, like bringing in folks who are just like.
Or if you're in education. I mean, example of that, I was at an event and there was a business that did education for nurses. Why I talked to them and said, well, have you ever thought about exporting that service? I mean, this is a service. There's people who can help you, that if you, you know, want to target potential students in Central America, they're going to be able to help you with that. So they started looking at exporting their service, because they never really thought about it before, but you know, they were Spanish speaking, they were originally from Colombia, so you know, no reason why they can't market there as well, particularly if they're looking to find more people in the medical field. That's a great need here. So it's a lot of times it's making people aware that they actually either are exporting and don't think about it, or that more often that they could be exporting their service. So yeah, I can help make those connections.
Excellent. Thanks, Chris.
All right, great.
Thank you.
We did ask, has anybody been here for 4, 8, or 12 consecutive meetings and has not received your cool swag yet? Is it? You look a little familiar, but I can't be sure. The shirt though, I think you already got a shirt. You think you're at 8?
I can count it up, you know, I presented on a month ago.
That's right. It has been a while. Get you a shirt afterward, because I have to check sizes available. Anybody been here for 12? Oh, Amita, yeah, Amita's been here most weeks, so Anita, when you're here next, we'll give you all your swag, because we owe you a few pieces. Oh, Anita, did you have a question as well?
You're on mute.
Oh, but I know Amita's been to several meetings, so Amita, if you can come next week, we will have your swag for you. All right. Oh, no question. So I did come up with a quick discussion question. That is, and if you remember, if you were here last week, I was talking about having your circle of close advisors, your 20 people that you have in reserve to help you find referrals and give you referrals, but you're also working for them. And so I wanted to kind of piggyback off of that. And the question is, who is somebody cool or important that you think everybody should meet? Like they are in your immediate network. They are the first person you think of whenever somebody talks about, I need X, and you think, I've got exactly the person. So my recommendation would be Jane Tracy, and that's how I met Chris, was through Jane. Jane is on our board and works the Orange County Public Library system, and she has helped other people at 1 Million Cups find resources and things like that. And she's just a font of knowledge of just great things to know about the community, about business resources. If anybody remembers Sheila Burrell when we were still all online, I remember Sheila found out about a session that Jane was teaching and hadn't planned on going, but went, and it gave Sheila enough information that she was able to start a business because of the information she had gotten from Jane. So, and Jane knows cool people like Chris. So I think Jane Tracy is one of the most important people that I think everybody should know. Another one is a friend of mine, Jeff Rembert, who is a commercial mortgage broker. So if you know anybody who's looking for a commercial space and needs any kind of commercial loan, this is the guy that can help put that deal together. So
What's his name?
Jeff Rembert, Rembert. And if you want an introduction, I can introduce you to him. I'll even be seeing him tonight. Denny.
I recommend everybody put a list together of different areas that you really don't know that much about. One could be finance, one could be the law, one could be real estate, and then find an expert in that field that you can count on, that you can go to. I've got a question here. You know, anybody who's the best person for this? Rick's not got a legal expert. He used to be Leon Haley, who passed away. Now I'm using another guy from our Rotary Club, who's once again one of the best lawyers in the entire state, and he knows all the different professions out there. So you have a legal question, who do I go for that? He can tell you that. That's something that everybody should have in their bag of tricks. So you can go, so you not only for yourself, but for friends. You get advice on what do I do with this? What do I go here? What are the laws here? Whatever the case may be.
All right, Scott and then Jim.
Two things. One, Isabella Johnston is very, 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 very well connected in Orlando. And if she doesn't know somebody that you might need to know, she's half a degree from the right person who would know that. So I would highly recommend you get in contact with.
What does she do?
Huh?
What does she do?
Well, she has a podcast right now, and she runs a business where she helps people get interns.
Okay.
So she's the intern whisperer.
Okay. Johnson or Johnston?
Johnston.
Johnston. Isabella Johnston.
And
She used to run.
yeah, she used to run 1 Million Cups.
Oh, that's how I know that.
Yeah. The other thing, Denny brought up making a list. There is a website, notepd.com. So notepad.com. It was started by one of my favorite authors and podcasters, James Altucher, who writes 10 ideas a day, and he uses the waiter's pad to do it. And he literally has done this for probably 2 decades, and he calls it working the idea muscle. But he created this website, notepd.com, where you can create a list of anything, and you can see everybody else's list. He just started it like 5 months ago. He's got 50,000 users already. And you can share your lists, and there's also an AI that will help you expand your list. So you can, if you want any more information about that, you can contact me. I haven't been using it because I'm a schmutz, but I do have an account. But I would highly recommend those two.
Cool, excellent. Jim,
Matt Roll, is become a good friend of mine. He specializes in helping business owners establish business credit using their EIN versus using your personal social security number. Very, very interesting stuff that I've been learning from sitting down and talking with him and sharing information. But I'm thinking like with Chris, if you're exporting and importing, having a line of credit for your business could be invaluable to helping you get to where you want to get to. But one of the examples that he shared that his client allowed him to, when this woman came to him, she had $1,000 worth of credit. Within 10 months, she had over $750,000 worth of business credit. A year and a half later, she's got over $3 million worth of business credit because they've helped them and worked through it. So she's no longer personally responsible. It's all built up. How do you spell his name? Roll, R-O-L-L.
That's the last name.
yes, Matt, Rupert,
So I can recommend two people.
The business name.
Jay Galt. I'll get you his contact information.
So I can recommend two people. So today we're talking about international trade and prior to this, prior to today's meeting, there's a friend that we mutually know named Khalid Munir. And so what Khalid does is he's just started the Central Florida International Trade Association or Chamber of Commerce. And so he's working on doing similar to what you're doing, but probably at a much higher level. You know, he's interested in really bringing in the big companies and doing all the big export and import deals and things like that. But he knows tons of people, tons of politicians. I mean, you walk into his office and literally the pictures on the wall of him with every president for the last 30 years, you know. And he's makes his money in real estate, but yeah, he's definitely really good and strong on the import export side. The other one is if you're interested in anything that's Web3, blockchain, cryptocurrency, NFTs, anything like that, VR or anything like that, then there's a new group in town called Web3 CFL, and that name may change, but the person who's running it is Nick Cardona. And this Saturday evening, they're having their second or third monthly meeting. And the last one, like 200 people showed up. And we have, my company will be there. We'll be showcasing a couple of our games, including possibly one of them on VR. But there's artists there, musicians there, other people that are offering, you know, digital assets of any type and so forth. And they're all there to meet each other, to network, to identify opportunities, form relationships and so forth. So it's going to be at City Arts Factory on Saturday evening. I think it starts at 36, 6:30, something like that. So yeah, so just look up Web3 CFL and you'll get all.
It's on Eventbrite.
It's on Eventbrite, yeah.
it's also the same day as the Pride Parade, so parking will be a bit of an issue.
Nick Cardone. He was here.
Yeah, last week. I know Nick real well. I've known Nick for a number of years, so he's really good at what he does.
Can you repeat the name of this?
Lead movie.
All right, Rod,
Question for everybody. Does anybody have a list that you have, you know, I call it a Rolodex, right? But okay, this person does this, this person does this, this person does this, not just like a contact label or something like that. But actually a list that you keep of who you turn to for if you have this need or someone that has that, you have something like that. Is there a template out there for anything like that, or is it just you just created one on your own?
I just use HubSpot.
That's something that I when I was in Utah, I just moved out here a year ago. A gentleman who runs a Google expert company, he wanted Google's top guys. As far as an advertising SEO company. Advertising company, but he always would get calls of, hey, I need you to do this. Well, he doesn't do Facebook ads, he just does Google ads. So what he did is he brought in all of his competitors, or quote competitors. And then he had, okay, these are the 5 different video producers that I'll recommend. This video guy does this for this segment and this segment. So even though everybody thought they were competing against each other, they actually all focused on different things. We just called it the Utah Marketing Group. And it was fantastic. I don't have enough connections here yet to do something. That's something that.
Just a suggestion that's worked for me, I just use Google, I can't speak for you, iPhone operators. But in my Google contacts, I try to put the person's title, their company name,
Right.
and sometimes within their notes. I'll say certain things, because you can search your Google contacts
Right.
for marketing or for sales or
Yeah,
whatever.
that's what I do currently with other, I just wondered if anybody had heard of a template or an app or anything like
Well, I
that.
use CamCard, so if somebody gives me a business card, right then and there, I take it. Just your camera, it scans the card, and then you put in for information. It integrates with both Google and with Apple contacts and so forth, and then you put in whatever. That's what I do. So
Evernote does that. If anybody uses Evernote, you can take a picture of a business card and it'll scan it, and then you set up on if this then that, which is ifttt.com or Zapier.com. You can set it so that card that you scanned with Evernote will then populate to your contacts.
If you need a Google or a YouTube, guys, with Dr. Tom, like REICH. And he's pretty amazing. I mean, he's a recognized expert in both fields. He put together a cartoon from old stuff from Charles Fleischer from back in the 30s that had 80 million hits so far. When he was in the music business, he's got 67 gold platinum albums of his own. He's really good. He's a little bit difficult to work with. He's really strange, but I might say he's really good at what he does. He's a recognized expert at both YouTube and Google. Best part about it is he can tell you everything at Google is free. There's a million things you can pay for. He knows everything you can get for free. And that's really important in any business.
I'm gonna put my wife out there. She's a social media expert. She has clients. She's had clients like some of the best lawyers, some of the best real estate people in town, Orlando City Soccer Foundation. But she's getting out of the marketing business, becoming a coach, and actually meeting with people and teaching them how to use social marketing, social media in businesses. But she and another person are going to start a marketing Orlando marketing group, kind of like what you mentioned, and they're actually just planning that. That should be awesome.
What's your wife's name?
Delana Baker is if you just Instagram or whatever, search her.
How do you spell Delana?
DELAINA. Actually, she knows you. She's connected with you on Facebook.
Oh, great. Excellent. Yeah, I'll definitely want to get in touch with her. Anyone else?
She might have been hacked. She don't have. She don't have. She goes by me.
Or Out Loud Social Media is also an option.
Ah, I know.
Say the name again.
Out Loud Social Media.
All right. Anyone else? Anyone on Zoom call? Have anybody?
any hands.
All right.
I'm just glad you brought Chris.
Yeah.
The whole time I thought he was speaking to me.
Yeah.
Great, the product, I mean, like you're exactly the sort of business that where you brought a product into the country and are making money, adding value to the whole economy here. Too many people think importing is exporting jobs, but no, it's just creating more jobs here as well.
Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation.
All right. Next week, and I think he's on the call right now, but next week we're going to hear from Michael Pilato at Full Throttle. Pilato leads and Rod and Rod, yeah, because Rod just added himself after I made the slide, so that should say ROD instead of TBD. So Rod is going to be speaking to us next week. Rod,
Something really cool. It's just something that's got a 2-year lifespan. But it's something where you can make add into anything that you're doing. It doesn't have to be a full-time gig. It's just something that it's has to do with the ERC credit.
Okay, that's right. You were talking about that last week. So yeah, that'll be interesting. All right, so if you're online, download the chat, but if you want to, if there was a chat, if you want to copy the chat, email me at erik.deckers@gmail.com, and I'll send it to you. Join us on meetup.com. Connect with somebody that you met here today, Chris and Peter. You guys ought to talk. Denny.
Steve just looked up Tom Reich on LinkedIn and it's unbelievable to write up about. So if you get a chance, take a look at it.
Where's our quote for the day?
Uh-oh.
That's Josh.
Why don't we have a quote today, Josh?
That's all right, I got it.
It's a inspirational quote by Marcel Marceau. All right, so thank you all for coming, and we will see you next week.